Alright guys, here's how to do the second part of this assignment. We are going to cut out the background from this photo and put her into this photo as if she is a giant coming to destroy the school. So let's go ahead and do that. First thing we'll do, of course, as always, is duplicate the background layer with Control J. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this nice young lady and start selecting her. We're going to do that by using the Quick Selection tool. It's right here. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th tool down. It's the one on top. So go ahead and select that. Its keyboard shortcut is W. I'm going to start. This is a pretty decent size brush. It's not too big and not too small. I'm going to go ahead and just start clicking and dragging over what I want to keep in the photo, meaning I'm going to try and not include any of the background. You can see that Photoshop has gone ahead and selected this orange right here, which I don't want. I'm not too worried about this down here. I'm not going to see it in the photo, so I'm going to leave that unselected. Now I do need to unselect this right here. I need to deselect that. To do that, I'm going to press and hold the Alt key, and you can see my cursor turned into a minus sign there. So I can go ahead and just with the Alt key held down, just click and drag over this orange that I want to get rid of. And whoops, I got too much. So let's come back and bring the arm back in. And we'll come back and clean that up later. Do the same thing over here. Hold down the Alt key. Click and drag over what you want to get rid of. And there you go. We got a pretty rough selection. It's better than we certainly could have done by hand. But let's go in and clean it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here at the top of her head. I can see that I missed kind of this lighter part of her hair. I'm going to make my brush smaller by using the left bracket key. That's the one right next to the letter P on your keyboard. And as long as my cursor is still a plus sign, I don't need to hold down anything. I can just click and drag over what I want to be added to my selection, which is all of her hair up here, a little bit down here. That looks pretty good. Let's come down here and see if we can't get a little bit better in her armpit. I'm going to hold down Alt, make my brush nice and small, and tell Photoshop I don't want that orange right there. Let's get rid of that. And same thing over here. Hold down Alt, click on this stuff right in here, but I do want to add this back in, so I'm going to let go of Alt and click and drag over that, and that's not bad right there. Let's look around the rest of it. I'm doing this by holding down the space bar. My cursor turns into that little hand, and I can click and drag and move my image around like that. I'm not going to worry about this right here. Well, let's worry about it, but that's not going to end up in the final photo, so it's not that big of a deal. Let's see if we can clean that corner up right there just a little bit. Whoops, I should have been holding down Alt to do that. Looks better. And that's a fairly decent selection. Let's not add a layer mask yet. Before we do that, well, let's see what it would have looked like. With a selection active, when you make a layer mask, it automatically masks out your item for you. You can see it's still pretty rough. I still got some orange here. The hair's pretty rough. It's not bad. This is pretty much better and much faster than I could have done if I had done it by hand. But I feel like I can make this better. So I'm going to Control Alt Z to undo and go back to where I still have my selection. And I'm going to come up here at the top of my screen and click on this Refine Edge button. And that's going to bring this little fella right here up. The first thing I like to do is go in and put all of my boxes back to 0. So I'm starting with a clean slate. Let's take a look at these at the bottom here, at the different things that they do. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see. This first one just shows us the selection. I don't really like it. I don't ever use this one. This one shows what would be selected, and then it makes everything else red. It kind of puts everything in this red mask mode. It's okay, but still I don't feel like I can see as good as I can with some of these other ones. I really like the black background. I use this one quite a bit. I also really like the white background. And this one just does black background and white, whatever selected. There are times when this one is really handy, but this is not it. I'm going to go ahead and use the black one. I feel like it helps me see my edges better than the other ones, so I'm going to choose this one right here. So let's come back to the top here. I'm going to just bring my radius up as high as it can go. And that obviously does not look very good, so let's start bringing it back slowly but surely. What you got to do is go a little bit and then stop, and then go a little bit and stop, go a little bit and stop, until you feel like you've got a pretty good selection. Let me zoom in on her head a little bit so I can see just how good it's looking, and I'm feeling like that's looking pretty darn good. I'm going to maybe go down just a smidge more, And that looks pretty good. Now, contrast is going to bring back some of the fuzziness or some of the hard edge here. Radius kind of softened up the edge a little bit. Contrast is going to bring it back. I'll take the contrast all the way up. Start slowly bringing it back till I feel like I've got a good combination between radius and contrast. Maybe right there. It looks pretty. Let's go down to the next one. We'll do some smooth here. Take the smooth all the way up. And what that does is just kind of smooths out the edges. It works okay for these plastic dolls, but we certainly don't want that much. And I bring it back just a little bit, maybe right about there. Looks pretty good. And then Feather's going to soften the edge substantially. In fact, look at that. It softened it so much that she disappeared. Let's start just bringing it back until we feel like it looks pretty good. And guys, there's no right number for everything. Everything is just going to depend on how good of a selection you got and how good of a photo you took. And every photo will be completely different. Last one we'll do is contract and expand. I rarely choose expand because that just makes our selection bigger. But I will kind of take it up a little bit higher and just start slowly bringing it back to see how good I do. And I never go more than about -4 or 5, to tell you the truth. And to me, that looks pretty darn good right there. Let's put it on white just so we can see if we missed anything. I like it. So let's go ahead and just press OK. And all that did was kick us out with the selection. We still need to do something with it. So let's add a layer mask to it. Make sure this background layer is turned off and we can see just how good of a job we did. Now at this point, if we need to, we'll grab our brush tool, come in, make sure our foreground color is set to black, and we'll come in and we'll manually clean up anything that Photoshop missed. So if we see maybe some hint of orange here in the corner or something, now would be the time to clean that up. But I think Photoshop did a pretty darn good job on this one. So I'm not really going to do anything. Next, I'm just going to grab my Move tool, keyboard shortcut V, click right on her face, click and drag her over to my photo that I want her to go into, which is this one right here. Let's go ahead and press Control T, hold down Shift, drag from the corner, and let's make her big enough that she looks like she's going to come and destroy the school. And there we go. And what we want to do is put her down so she's low enough that she'll be completely behind the school. Now, we do not want to use this layer mask to remove her dress, and the reason why is if we do, we come in and let's pretend we took a lot of time to get this looking just right. Kind of like that. That's another reason why, because if we do, we're going to bring back parts that we already got rid of. But let's pretend this is just right, and then we decide we want to move her. Well, now we got to start all over again. So we don't want to layer mask her to make her look like she's there. What we want to do is duplicate our background layer again by pressing Control J. And we want to move this on top of this layer. So I need to bring that dress back is what I need to do. There we go. Now duplicate the background layer, put it on top of our Cinderella layer, and then add a layer mask to this layer. And then come in with our brush tool set to black and paint her back in. Now the more we layer mask, the more options we'll have for moving her later. But let's stop just shy of the school. We do not want her dress coming down over the school. We want to leave a gap there because we're going to fix that really easily using Photoshop, a different tool. So I'm going to get as close as I can. Whoops, of course I did too much. Let's just leave it like that. Okay, we'll make sure our layer mask is still selected. We'll come and we're going to grab the polygonal lasso tool. It's right here. Its keyboard shortcut is L. It's the middle tool here. And I'm going to zoom in right over here, and I'm going to go ahead and press caps lock. I'm going to turn my caps lock on so that my cursor turns into this little target-like thing. It's a little bit more precise than using this. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to move my cursor just inside the school. Can you see that? I don't want to start up here or even right on the line because that's going to leave a tiny bit of white. Instead, what I want to do is start just inside the school. Not too much, but just enough. And I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to click once. And that's how you start your line. You click once, and you let go. And now I'm just going to drag the mouse along this nice straight line of the school. until I get to a point where I need to turn, at which point I'll just click, and now I can turn. So now I'm going to come up this way. Now the school has all these little bumps. We're not going to take the time to do those. If we were doing this professionally or for a real client who was going to pay us real money, then we would, but we're not going to. So I'm just moving along here, and then there's the edge of the dress. So I'm going to go to right about here. I'm going to go just inside all those little bumps. I'm going to go ahead and click right about there. And that's going to allow me to turn. And now I can come along here and come back to where I started. And close my selection by going back to where I started. And see how my cursor changes back to that thing and that little tiny circle appears next to it? That's how you know you're back to the beginning. And then you just click right there and your selection completes. Now all we have to do is fill this area in with black. There's several different ways to do that, but if we go to Edit, Fill, or press Shift F5 as the keyboard shortcut, this box right here will pop up. We'll click on black as our choice and just hit OK. And you can see that gave us a nice little selection along the school there. And now if we need to, we can move little Cinderella around. Within reason, we can't move her too much, or we'll have to do some more layer masking, but for the most part we can move her around and put her kind of wherever we want, and that's the beauty of doing it this way. And then there you go. Now it looks like she's coming from behind the school, ready to destroy us all. And that's it. At this point you would save it as a PSD in your own folder, and then save it as a JPEG in the grading folder, and you are done.